Some movies come and go, but The Crow, well, people still talk about it even after all these years. It's dark, it's beautiful, and it's got secrets that Hollywood doesn't really like to tell. Secret number 1, a comic book born from grief. What if your favorite comic was never meant to be read by anyone? Most comic books are born from wild imagination. This one was born from heartbreak. James O'Barr wasn't a famous writer, and he wasn't looking to make a blockbuster. In 1981, he was just a young man in love, until his world shattered. His fiancée, Beverly, was killed by a drunk driver when she was only 18. And O'Barr, he didn't know what to do with the pain. So he started drawing. Not happy pictures, and not colorful superheroes, but a dark, haunting story about love, death, and what comes after. That story became the Crow graphic novel. Its hero, Eric Draven, is murdered alongside his fiancée and returns from the grave to make things right. Sound familiar? I know, and it's because O'Barr poured his own grief, rage, and guilt straight into the pages. He said in interviews that creating The Crow didn't make him feel better, it just gave his pain a place to live. The rain-soaked alleys, the aching romance, the brutal fights, all of it came from real heartbreak. When Hollywood came calling, O'Barr didn't trust them. He thought they'd turn his raw, personal story into a shiny action flick. But director Alex Proyas refused to sanitize it. He kept the pain in the shadows, the music, even the smallest moments. That's why The Crow doesn't feel like a superhero movie. It feels like a ghost story, because in a way, it is. This wasn't just another comic book adaptation. It proved that stories about rage and loss could be just as powerful, maybe even more powerful than stories about saving the world. Secret number 2, Brandon Lee's final role. But grief isn't just in the story of The Crow, it spilled onto the set itself. Brandon Lee wasn't just acting in The Crow, he was actually stepping into the role that could have made him one of Hollywood's biggest stars. The son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, Brandon had the charisma, the fight skills, and the intensity to make Eric Draven unforgettable. And on set, that's exactly what he was doing. But then came March 31st, 1993. Only 3 days left of filming. The crew was tired but excited because the finish line was in sight. That night, they shot a scene where Eric Draven walks in on a gang and is brutally murdered. The prop gun was loaded with blanks, just like dozens of scenes before. But hold on, here's the part that still shakes Hollywood. A fragment from a dummy bullet had been lodged inside the barrel from a previous shoot. No one knew. When the blank was fired, it propelled the fragment with the force of a real bullet. It hit Brandon in the abdomen. At first, people thought he was acting. Then panic set in. He was rushed to the hospital, where surgeons worked for 6 hours and transfused over 60 units of blood. Brandon Lee died that night. He was only 28 years old, and the fact that in 2 weeks, he was supposed to marry his fiancée, Eliza Hutton, that future vanished in a heartbeat. The production came to a standstill. Some thought the film should be shut down forever. Others believed finishing it was the only way to honor him. In the end, they pressed on, using a stunt double, Chad Stahelski, yes, the future director of John Wick, plus cutting-edge 90s CGI to finish the missing scenes. Many viewers never realized that in some shots, Eric Draven's face was digitally mapped. Brandon's death changed Hollywood's safety rules for prop guns and left behind rumors of a Lee family curse. When The Crow finally premiered, it was a tribute to the man who never got to see it. Secret number 3, that gothic rain. Look, you've seen it everywhere. The Crow's style didn't just define a cult classic, it rewired Hollywood's visual DNA. From its first frame, The Crow pulls you into a world drowning in black leather, flickering neon, and relentless night rain. Director Alex Proyas wasn't just making a movie, he was building a myth. The city feels like a fever dream, a place where heartbreak turns beautiful under wet asphalt and neon halos. The rain was like a mood. It softened the violence, sharpened the shadows, and made every fight feel like a rock opera in mourning. That black-on-black wardrobe wasn't superhero spandex, but was grief worn like armor. But why did rainy streets, gothic trench coats, and haunted Avengers suddenly dominate late 90s and early 2000s cinema? Did every director have the same dream? Or were they all borrowing from The Crow? And here's where it gets interesting. After The Crow hit in 1994, Hollywood directors began echoing its blueprint. The Wachowskis soaked The Matrix in rain and shadows. Blade adopted its leather-clad hunters and neon bloodlust. Underworld, Sin City, even the modern elegance of John Wick all walked those same wet streets, drenched in grief and style. The Crow not only inspired costumes, but also created a visual language. Long coats became rebellion, rain became catharsis, and neon became danger. This was a complete gothic tragedy with a pulse. Even now, those rain-slick streets and moody palettes appear in films and games without anyone openly admitting their origin. It's a quiet influence that soaked into cinema's subconscious, making Eric Draven's world the hidden ancestor of countless modern classics. Secret number 4, Eric Draven's look. Cinematic blueprint. Eric Draven's style wasn't just a costume, it became the genetic code for pop culture's most unforgettable anti-heroes. Long black trench coat, tangled rain-slick hair, and stark white face, carved with black lines like grief turned into war paint. When Brandon Lee stepped into Eric Draven's boots, he was like burning an image into cinema's memory. The makeup team blended inspirations from Japanese kabuki theater, silent-era clowns, and James O'Barr's raw, aching comic art. Every brushstroke carried tragedy, and every shadow hid a love story turned into vengeance. But here's the question. Why did this look explode across Hollywood after The Crow? How did one man's storm-drenched silhouette become the go-to uniform for a generation of vigilantes and villains? Well, as The Crow's release in 1994, the ripple effect was instant. V for Vendetta embraced the mask and coat rebellion. Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight, chaotic hair, smeared makeup, that haunted smile felt like a twisted echo of Lee's Draven. Even Sin City's stylized noir and John Wick's sleek assassins carried traces of that gothic blueprint. Draven became the silent godfather of the cinematic anti-hero. His style proved that costume could be character and that tragedy could be worn like armor. Hollywood may never admit it, but the pale face behind a storm-soaked coat still walks through modern cinema. That ghostly image is the rebellion every dark hero tries to wear, whether they know it or not. Secret number 5. The soundtrack. Was a cultural moment. Now, forget what you know about movie music. What if I told you The Crow didn't just look good, it sounded like a revolution? Because The Crow's soundtrack didn't just set a mood, it captured an entire generation. Let's talk about music's legacy. Close your eyes and picture rain-slick streets, flickering neon, and Eric Draven's shadow gliding through the city. Now crank the volume, and instead of a generic orchestral score, you're hit with The Cure's Dreamy Darkness, Nine Inch Nails' Industrial Rage, Stone Temple Pilots' Gritty Rock, and Rage Against the Machine's Firestorm Rebellion. This wasn't music slapped onto a movie, this was the heartbeat of The Crow. Director Alex Proyas and his team literally built the world around them. Every note amplified the pain, beauty, and chaos on screen. Think about it. Why do some films fade into the background, while others live in your bloodstream? Maybe it's because The Crow's soundtrack was a 90s rite of passage. You didn't just watch the movie, you wore the music. And here's the kicker. Most people don't even realize the soundtrack went multi-platinum, becoming one of the best-selling alternative compilations of the decade. The gamble seriously paid off. By bringing together alt-rock royalty at their peak, the producers created a time capsule of raw, unapologetic energy. Every track carried the emotional weight of the story, from the aching romance to the unrelenting vengeance. The soundtrack became as iconic as Eric Draven himself, inspiring other films to chase that same perfect marriage between music and mood. Even MTV Unplugged sets, music videos, and later cult soundtracks carried The Crow's sonic fingerprints. It blurred the line between cinema and concert, turning a dark comic adaptation into a cultural wave that still echoes today. The music made you feel The Crow. But what about the hidden artistry you never saw on screen? Next, we reveal Hollywood's miniature magic. Secret number 6. Filming took a place in Miniature City. The Crow's city was never made of brick and steel. It was smoke, light, and plastic, engineered to fool your eyes. You remember those endless rooftops? The neon bleeding into the rain? The skyline that looked like it stretched forever? None of it was real. When The Crow ran into brutal budget cuts, most films would have shrunk the vision. But production designer Alex McDowell refused to let the city feel small. Instead of massive sets or costly location shoots, his team went microscopic, building the entire metropolis at 1/24th scale. The alleys were so narrow you could walk across them in 2 steps, rooftops you could hold in your hands, and lampposts shorter than your coffee mug. But on screen, it looked like an infinite rain-soaked graveyard of steel. The secret was forced perspective, making closer objects larger, distant ones smaller, combined with layers of smoke, shadows, and backlighting. Add a slow camera glide over those rooftops, and suddenly, a model the size of a kitchen table became a living, breathing city. This wasn't just a workaround, it was art. Those miniatures gave the film its dream-like, gothic vibe. It didn't feel like any real place. It felt like a nightmare you couldn't wake from. That illusion inspired an entire generation of filmmakers. Sin City, Batman Begins, even the neon haze of Blade Runner 2049, they all owe a debt to The Crow's miniature magic. This was storytelling alchemy, and the fact that most viewers still believe they saw a real city, that's proof the illusion worked better than reality. But the city wasn't the only thing that defied reality. Next, we talk about how the camera itself broke Hollywood rules forever. Secret number 7. The Crow's point of view shots were groundbreaking. To be honest, The Crow possessed the camera and made it fly. And I'm not even lying. Those sweeping shots over rain-slick rooftops, the dizzying glide through narrow alleys, the feeling that you're the one drifting above the neon. That was a real revolution in how action films were shot. Back in 1994, drones didn't exist. CGI was clunky and expensive. But director Alex Proyas wanted us to see the world through Eric Draven's eyes, a restless spirit hunting through a city that never slept. So the crew got crafty. They built custom camera rigs, massive steel tracks, wire systems strung across rooftops, and pulley setups that could carry a camera through tight spaces. Every movement was meticulously choreographed to feel like an unbroken spirit's flight, swooping from skyscraper to street in seconds. And here's the thing, these weren't just cool shots, they were emotional. They made you feel trapped in Draven's grief and rage, floating above a city that had swallowed his life. Then, Hollywood noticed. Soon, superhero swings in Spider-Man, the brooding rooftop glides in Batman Begins, even the kinetic chaos of The Matrix were borrowing the same DNA. The Crow had shown that you didn't need high-tech wizardry, you just needed imagination, cables, and the guts to try something no one had before. Those POV sequences blurred the line between viewer and character, so you could feel like you were inside it, haunting the city right alongside him. And that idea, immersion through movement, would become a staple of modern action filmmaking. Secret number 8. A film noir meets music video. Style. Right from the opening, The Crow made one thing clear. This was going to look, sound, or move like any movie you'd seen before. The Crow hits like flipping channels at midnight and landing on a music video shot inside a nightmare. That wasn't an accident. It felt like director Alex Proyas cut his teeth making music videos before stepping behind this film. Instead of classic wide shots and gentle fades, he went for rapid edits, flashing lights, and camera angles that never sat still. Every alley glimmered like a stage set, and the fight scene was cut like a rock concert, which seemed loud, fast, and dripping with style. These were never just cool visuals. Proyas synced movement, sound, and emotion like they were beats in a track. Gunshots cracked on the downbeat, footsteps hit like percussion, and even the shadows seemed to pulse to the film's invisible tempo. It felt like the city itself was part of the soundtrack, all alive, breathing, and moving with Eric Draven's rage. This film noir meets music video look became one of the film's most lasting signatures. Proyas would push the same style further in Dark City, but The Crow was the spark. Directors across the globe took notes, bringing that music video rhythm into everything from superhero epics to gritty sci-fi. Suddenly, action films weren't just telling stories, they were performing them. It blurred the line between cinema and concert, turning the screen into a visual stage. With its rain-slick streets, flashing lights, and heartbeat edits, The Crow proved a movie could hit like a song stuck in your head, with dark, hypnotic, and impossible to shake. Secret number 9. Half the dialogue was improvised. Not every line in The Crow came from the script. Sometimes, the film's wildest moments happened on the fly, and some of most haunting lines were born in the moment, raw and unpredictable. On set, Alex Proyas' script was more of a blueprint than a Bible. While the story beats were locked in, the words were often up for grabs. Michael Wincott, as the magnetic and dangerous top dollar, thrived on breaking the mold. His gravelly delivery, sly pauses, and wicked smirks came from chasing a mood rather than sticking to the page. Brandon Lee matched that energy effortlessly. Instead of fighting for the line, he embraced the chaos, riffing, reacting, and letting emotions dictate the words. Some of the film's most iconic moments were born this way, with Lee's quiet, aching intensity colliding against Wincott's theatrical menace. And then the result was dialogue that felt alive, unpredictable, and emotionally jagged. There were scenes where the script said one thing, but the actors took it somewhere entirely different. Exchanges became darker, funnier, or unexpectedly poetic. At times, you'd swear you were listening to street poetry laced with grief and rage, because that's exactly what it was. Unplanned, unpolished truth spilling out between takes. Ever notice how you can't predict what these characters will say next? That tension, that edge, comes from improv when you're watching actors surprise each other in real time. Even decades later, fans comb through these moments, trying to separate the scripted from the spontaneous. The truth is, the magic was in the collision of personalities when actors were willing to risk breaking the rhythm to discover something more real. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most unforgettable moments aren't written, they're found. And that's what makes The Crow unrepeatable. No remake or sequel can recreate lightning that struck only once. Secret number 10, a cult legacy that outshines its sequels, and finally, the last one. Despite Hollywood's best efforts, nothing, not sequels, reboots, or spin-offs, ever matched the original legacy of The Crow. The success of The Crow was both a blessing and a curse for studios. Hoping to bottle lightning twice, Hollywood rolled out 3 sequels and even a TV series, each trying to mimic that perfect blend of gothic tragedy and razor-sharp style. But the difference was instant. The soul, that raw grief, mythic weight, and hypnotic atmosphere, never returned. Every attempt to reinvent Eric Draven's journey found itself trapped in the shadow of Brandon Lee's performance and Alex Proyas' singular vision. They could match the aesthetic, maybe even the action, but they could never recapture the heart. Over the years, the original film has only grown stronger in legend. Fans still pack midnight screenings, create haunting fan art, and trade whispered urban myths about its cursed production. Brandon Lee's final, unforgettable role turned The Crow from just a cult hit into a timeless ghost story, one that Hollywood can't and maybe shouldn't try to resurrect. The secrets are out, but the spirit of The Crow still waits in the dark, ready for those who seek it. So, after everything you've heard, how much do you really know about The Crow? Did any secrets surprise you? Did we miss one? Or maybe you've got a conspiracy theory of your own? Drop your wildest thoughts, and let's see who really spent the last hour in the dark with us. And hey, if you love uncovering Hollywood's shadows, don't just lurk. Subscribe, share this with your most dramatic friend, and give us a like. Go on, prove you're not just another doomed spirit in the comments section.